Hello and welcome. This is Fireworks. By all indications, the National Assembly is poised to give accelerated hearing to the 2020 Appropriation Bill, a budget that is predicated on borrowing to service capital expenditure. This government is convinced that a more creative revenue generation drive should be adopted to financing budget. But experts say this creative approach appears to be a strain on an already struggling national economy. Let's get an aerial view of contributions of members to this 2020 budget ahead of it being passed. Welcome to the program. Let's take a moment. Welcome to Fireworks once again. My guest today is the member representing Atisbo, Shaki East, Shaki West Federal Constituency of Oyo State here at the National Assembly, Honorable Olatunbosun Olajide. Welcome to the program.
Good afternoon.
You're welcome, sir. The National Assembly in the 9th session wants to do something different this time, pass the budget before the new cycle year begins. What are those factors that, in your view, from the corridors of power, enhancing this new resolve?
Well, thank you so much. Over the years, normally budgets are passed in the month of May or June. That brings a kind of a distortion or mismatch. Most companies in Nigeria in the private sector, we do a January to December financial cycle. So government being a major spender, a major enabler of the economy, if government budget doesn't come on time, it means there will be delayed in spending, in taking decision. So that's affecting the way the economy is running. Now what we are trying to do is to do a January to December cycle so that I can have a kind of harmony between the private and the public sector.
But what's different this time? Has the administration anticipated how to fund the budget like in the past?
Absolutely. From revenue to be generated from oil, other IGRs like taxes and other inflows, and also borrowing, domestic and internationally.
But there are consistencies in the budget. For instance, it's predicated on an oil benchmark of $57 per barrel. Of course, yes, oil price has increased above that. But then again, OPEC has set a benchmark for reduction. So the anticipated revenue is well below the over 10 trillion naira budget.
Well, what's going to happen is that we have shortfall in production volume that will be compensated for by the increase in price. You have a margin of like $6. Benchmark price $57 is going for like 64 now. So if the shortfall in volume will be compensated for by the increase in the...
But OPEC has advocated and decided on a reduction in output from producing countries.
No, the budget is based on production output of about 2 million barrels per day. That is petroleum and condensates. OPEC quotas do not affect condensates. So you check the budget, you see that for crude oil is about $1.8 million barrels per day. Condensates makes up for the balance, and quotas doesn't affect the condensates. So I think we are good.
You would still not have achieved your 10 trillion naira revenue budget, would you?
Definitely no. The total budget is 10 trillion. That is recurrent, capital, revenue to be generated from oil, from other sectors, and from borrowing. So everything comes into that 10.33 trillion. That size of the budget.
That explains the increase in VAT, value-added tax, and the hurry by the National Assembly to pass the finance bill. So why should Nigerians be the one to bear the brunt of revenue generation to fund the budget?
Okay, let me just make some few comments on the finance bill and the issue of VAT. VAT is consumption tax, and is a progressive tax. It is not targeted at the vulnerable group. It is for people that have the resources to spend. And because the tax incidence is on the final consumer. For instance, if I go to Sheraton to have a lunch, I'm going to do 5% on my bill. I can go to Yaoyo and eat amala. With 1,000 naira, I'll do amala, do shaki, do table water. Nobody charges me VAT. And when the president came with the budget, he said items like pharmaceuticals, books and periodicals, baby foods, basic food items, they are all exempted. So really, VAT is to bring in more resources for the government, that is from the rich.
What about the stamp duty charge? Inevitably, Nigerians will also pay that. What about the CBN regulation about paying more for deposit and withdrawals above 500,000 naira?
Well, I'm not speaking for the CBN, but as a finance professional myself, I think what that is trying to achieve is to move gradually to a cashless society. And what they are saying is this: if you take more
But
than,
revenue will come from there.
if you take more than $500,000 to the bank, once you exceed 500,000 naira threshold, you begin to pay some 1,000 naira on every additional 500,000. And let's face it, in this country, which people have the kind of resources to take $500,000 to the bank or more than that in a day?
3% is a lot on withdrawals and deposit above 500,000 naira.
But you have other channels, you can do electronic payments. I mean, there is a provision for you to go, you can transfer money from one bank to another or within a bank without touching the cash.
Fine, the argument for cashless economy is good.
Yeah.
The point is that revenue will come from there
Absolutely.
to finance the budget.
Yeah, for people that...
So why shouldn't government also advocate prudence at the government level, at the executive, at the legislative level?
Well, government is trying to do that. I mean, if you look at National Assembly budget over the years, it's been reduced by from 150 billion several years back to about 125 billion.
But the executive has doubled its spending on travels and all other allowances in this budget. Will the National Assembly be taking a look at that before it passes it?
Absolutely, we have looked at the current expenditure, most especially the overheads. Don't forget that more government agencies are being established, and all of them, they have to pay salaries. The offices must run. I'm not speaking for the president, but in the last 4 or 5 years, you will see that he's tried so much to plug loopholes, to reduce leakages, and ensure that you have more transparency and prudence in public finance.
Specifically, now that you're speaking for the president, he has the executive has increased spending on travels and other allowances for the 2020 budget from what it was in 2018, 1.4 billion to 2.1 billion. How does that advocate prudence for the executive?
You know, that has to be put in context. What was the program of activities for 2019 and for 2020? Unless I have those details, I cannot go into comparing 1.8 billion and 2-point-something billion.
1.4 in 2019.
2.1, Abi. I'm sure that they have maybe other activities that will take place in 2020 that didn't take place in 2019.
Well, why create an austere conditions for the people, and the government is not leading by example?
Well, as I've said
that's
earlier
the
on,
question.
I'm not a spokesperson for the federal government, but I'm just talking from the angle of a legislator. Looking at what has happened in the last 4 to 5 years, in the 8th Assembly, I was a member of the Appropriation Committee, and I know that, I mean, in the last 10 years, this is the first government that will do 30% capital budget. That is ratio of capital to total expenditure. 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019. In 2020, we have like 21%. So there was never a time that Nigeria had so good that government paid more attention to the capital component of the budget. So comparing this government with the past ones, I would say that we have an improvement. Although it's still work in progress. A long, long way to go, but at least somebody has started something that we can build on.
If you talk about prioritizing capital budget, there are still a lot of drawbacks on infrastructure. There's still, government has not met its target on a lot of infrastructure work.
Absolutely.
For instance, Lagos-Ibadan Expressway has not been concluded. You can talk a lot also about roads in the south that have not been completed.
Okay.
So in that regard, why shouldn't government look inwards to, developing more creative ways of revenue generation and, depart from the over-dependence on crude?
Let me go down the memory. The Lagos-Ibadan Expressway was opened or commissioned, I think, in 1978. That was 41 years ago. There was no serious attempt at either reconstructing, rehabilitating, or repairing that road until a few years back, when this government, through a special infrastructure fund, decided to do a total reconstruction of that road. Now, every year, you have some funds from appropriation onto the road, the Second Niger Bridge, the Abuja-Kaduna-Kano Road, and I think the Mambila Power projects. Those are the signature projects. Now, the challenge is this: if you leave your infrastructure unattended to for 30 years, the kind of decay you are going to have can only be subject to imagination. Now, this government has taken the bull by the horn. Let us start doing something. But we don't have enough money. That's why those jobs are very, very slow. Now, what we are advocating is this. Let's float a special infrastructure fund, like a 10 trillion infrastructure fund. Let Nigerians lend money to the government. A bond is like, is a finance instrument.
We go back to Nigerians again.
It's a debt instrument. Yeah, Nigerians, people that have resources that they want to invest. Let them lend to the government over a period of, say, 10 years. Let's do 1 trillion naira per year for infrastructure. It can be roads, it can be power, it can be schools, it can be hospitals, but it will be solely for building our infrastructure. It won't be for recurrent or personnel expenses.
But what Nigerians are saying is that government is not leading by example by advocating for them to be the ones to bear the brunt of funding the budget, funding infrastructure.
No, they're not bearing any brunt. They are lending money to the government. The money will be paid back. Government is like, they have a shortfall. They want to spend 1 trillion. They only have 200 billion now. They're expecting future income. So if they borrow money from the public now, they can pay over a period of time. So, and if you lend to the government, you can go to sleep, because it's more like a risk-free investment. So a bond means Nigerians that have resources, they have some savings, they can lend to the government. Government takes that pool of funds and do infrastructure for all of us. Then over time, the money they have given to the government is repaid to them at some level of interest rate.
Does that explain the hurry in passing the finance bill? The accelerated hearing given to the finance bill, so that the revenue can be got from, this increase in tax. Well, along with other, regulations coming from the Apex Bank.
I won't say we are in a hurry. The finance bill was a critical component of the 2020 appropriation bill. And unless you have that bill running, you cannot finance your budget. Look at the issue of VAT from 5% to 7.5%. I mean, look at a country like Ghana. They do 10.5%. South Africa does 15%. Those are African nations like us.
But Nigeria's GDP is not as high as these countries that you're quoting.
What GDP
these countries have higher GDPs. Nigeria is the capital of poverty of the world. Don't forget.
Well, I don't agree with that statistic. I don't agree with it.
You don't agree with the statistics.
I disagree with it.
Do you have different realities?
Yes, because most of this data you get from the Western world, they don't take our own peculiar circumstances into consideration.
So what are those peculiar?
The informal sector in Nigeria is so huge. Who captures the data? So this economy is actually bigger than what you get from IMF or World Bank. That's the truth. The informal sector in Nigeria is probably like half of the formal sector. IMF doesn't know that. You see, a woman selling a bolly by the roadside, the woman has 100,000 naira kept somewhere in the house. The money is not, she's not taking it to the bank. So Who's going to capture that she has that kind of a money?
Is your position evidence-based? Perhaps your reality is different because you are a legislator. You don't know what is going on in the homes of many Nigerians.
I do, because I'm very close to the grassroots.
To the grassroots?
Absolutely.
How extensive is this grassroots that you talk about?
I mean, my constituency, I interact with people, and the place I come from, we are largely farmers and traders. We don't really depend on government for salary. So, rich people, people that do commercial farming, that do a lot of trading. So I know that.
So who are the beneficiaries of your administration's trader money and all other allowances like that have been distributed to the extreme poor, the Abacha loot that was distributed to the extreme poor? So who are the beneficiaries?
Well, you have said the extreme poor. The money was given to them. I mean, in the last, before the election, you saw the VP moving from one place to another to see how far, to get the feedback. People made a mistake. The VP was not sharing money. We have a structure in place whereby the Bank of Industry and other institutions come together through a well-structured process to identify people that live below maybe a certain level of income, and the monies were given to them. The VP's trip to market was to get a feedback from the traders. Did you get this money? And the answer has been yes. In my community, my constituency, there's a particular place that, the World Bank came to do enumeration. And they get the money on a quarterly basis. So when people say that they are not getting the money, it's a lie.
Are you aware, before we exit this, by the way, that there are some communities in this country where they have not seen a car in their lives? Never set eyes on vehicles?
Well, you are telling me that. I've never seen one, but you are a journalist. I'm sure you've traveled wide and far. And
so perhaps it's realistic that Nigeria is the poverty capital of the world.
I don't agree with that.
Not discountenancing your disagreement with the statistics.
No, I don't agree with
But given these realities, it is plausible that Nigeria just may be the poverty capital of the world. Now, let's look at a second look at the CBN policies. You're advocating a cashless economy and asking Nigerians to pay more for deposits and withdrawals made in cash. And on the other hand, you're asking them to pay stamp duty on POS transactions. Isn't that contradictory?
Well, some apparent contradictions. You know, when you have a policy, it's not cast in iron. It can always be reviewed. I hope the CBN will look into that, because I learned many people with POS terminals, they've dropped them. They don't want to use POS again. That can be reviewed. But having said that, CBN, they have their own spokesperson. I'm sure they will respond to those concerns from Nigerians at the appropriate.
You're watching Fireworks. My guest today is Honorable Olatunbosun Olajide. We've been having a conversation on the 2020 budget and challenges surrounding funding. When we return, we'll begin to look at the politics of the lower chamber. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Thank you for staying tuned. Today on the program, we're looking at the 2020 appropriation bill, particularly reviewing the challenges around funding and asking questions on prudence in governance. My guest today is Honorable Olatunbosun Olajide, representing Atisbo, Shaki East, Shaki West Federal Constituency. Thank you for your time, sir, so far. Now, you were an aspirant in the race for the position of Speaker after the elections were fought and won a few months back. So what has politicking at the Assembly been like for you after that race?
Well, it was a very good experience for me. The courage to say, I want to be the first among equals. And I thank my colleagues, people that supported me, for the confidence they had in me. But having said that, politics ended on June 11, when we had the first session and presiding officers were elected, that's the Speaker and the Deputy Speaker. It's one house. We are back at work. And what everybody is doing now is that all hands must be on deck, including mine, so that the leadership can succeed. We have to support the Speaker to be able to implement his agenda, and also the rest of the House leadership. So for now, no politics. It is work, work, work. Really? Absolutely.
One thing that is critical after elections into presiding offices at National Assembly is the issue of standing committees. Would you say that the leadership has been fair in allocating standing committees?
Well, it's politics. You have 360 members, you have about 100 committees. In fairness to the leadership, everybody cannot have chairmanship or deputy chairmanship. What is important is, over time, is everybody giving their fair share of opportunities so that they can represent their constituencies very well. I don't want to go into the politics of allocation of offices in the House, but as long as people that are holding those offices are members of the House of Representatives, they didn't bring anybody from outside to head those committees. I think for me, I'm fine.
Are you really fine, Honorable?
Absolutely.
The immediate past Speaker, according to reports, and we have it on record, rewarded those that didn't vote for him with committees. But it appears to be a departure from that leadership style under this administration, the leadership of this Ninth Assembly. What would you say to that?
Well, you know, people have different leadership styles. I mean, incidentally, in the 8th Assembly, we supported the current Speaker, Honorable Gbajabiamila. We fought tooth and nail. We failed to make him the Speaker. We had to fight until he emerged as the House leader. But also, what happened in 2015 and 2019, the dynamics are not the same. So, if he believes that these are the people that supported me, for me to have peace in the House, for me to be able to mobilize everybody in the House to achieve set objectives, these are the people that should hold certain positions like chairmanship, then so be it. As long as we are going to have peace, stability, we will be able to do our jobs. And Nigerians didn't elect us to come here and be fighting among ourselves.
You were an aspirant, and after the standing committees were constituted, you didn't get any chairmanship or vice chairmanship position. How does that sit well with you?
No, I didn't. I see that as a temporary thing. What is important is I'm a member.
Are you being vindicated for daring to square up against?
I mean, if you believe in a cause, whatever are the challenges, whether in the short, medium, or long term, you must be able to stand for the courage of your conviction. So I don't see it as a big deal that I'm not considered for any position of chairmanship or deputy chairmanship.
That's not the answer to the question. Are you being vindicated?
That what?
Are you being vindicated for daring to square up against the Speaker that was elected?
Maybe it's the Speaker that will be in the best position to answer that question, man.
But you didn't get any chairmanship position, so you should know.
The Speaker is the CEO of the House of Reps. He has the prerogative
to
determine who gets what.
Are you being careful with your words?
No, I'm just being realistic with you. Once the Speaker
is it the same treatment, by the way, that has been meted on the four led by Kingsley Chinda? There are reports that that group also did not support the aspiration of the Speaker, and it is the other party who is suspended by the opposition party that supported the aspiration of the Speaker. Hence, their reward with the presiding offices
I'm not a member of the PDP.
Of the minority leadership.
I'm of APC. So Kingsley Chinda.
But the point there is, are they being punished also?
I don't know. It's the House leadership that can answer that question. I'm just a member of that House. And the House leadership, starting from the Speaker, the Deputy Speaker, and remaining principal officers, they determine the direction.
Is the plan of the party, the All Progressives Congress, the ruling party, all along to have an assembly that, flows with the plans and policies of the executive without opposition? Is it what is playing out now
We have opposition.
with the election?
We have minority leadership in place. Honorable Lumelu is the...
But their ranks have been broken. Where is the opposition to check some of these issues that we have raised in the budget?
It's politics. The House minority leadership is in place. They have the minority leader, the deputy, the minority whip, and the deputy whip. They are all in place.
So the majority will have its, the minority will have a say, but the majority will have its way.
Yeah, that's what democracy is all about.
Really?
We are in APC, we are the majority party, and we must have our way.
Okay, so you are the one in the throes of the politicking, so it will be difficult for us to argue with you on that one, but we'll thank you very much for your time and thoughts on fireworks today,
so
Honorable Olajide. And that's our offering on the program today. There'll be a repeat broadcast of this edition on the times showing on your screen. And of course, we promise you another edition of the program, same time next week. Thank you for watching. I am Bukola Samuel-Wemimo. Bye for now.